Hi there. I would like to be the first to say in my defense that I've been losing it recently, and I've been really stressed out. I took a few days off, and that refreshed me so much. But I was having a conversation with my son last night, and he said to me, every time you say that, you say chat GTP, and it's chat GPT. And I just listened to the video I just made, and it's true that easily half the time, I get it wrong. So I just want you to bear with me. I kind of actually, most of the time, know what I'm talking about, but there, I said it. So, I'm absolved now, right? I told you before that I was going to bring you some information about, I'm really big on conservation of, kind of everything. It drives me crazy, and I have been for years. And it kind of drives me crazy when people are like, oh, the air conditioning's on, but I'm leaving the doors open and I've got the windows open because, well, it's free. And it's not free. If your landlord's paying for it, your electricity, it's not free to anybody. When you waste resources like that, that's why y'all over there on the East Coast are having another huge storm. That's why there's snow at 1,500 feet here in California, even though it's almost 5 o'clock and it's still 60 degrees out. That's really good. But the weather's out of control, and part of it is because we're not paying attention to our resources. So this is kind of flown under the radar, and I'm not sure why they're not more proactive about putting out this information. But a long time ago, like I'm going to say it seems like a long time ago, in November, I was like, well, you know what? If you're so smart, then why would you run headlong into a brick wall knowing that in this country, or probably every other country, we have a limited amount of resources to use for like everything. And if you are consuming the amount of electricity that I think you are, based on what I've read and heard, and the amount of water, especially in California in the desert where a lot of the data centers are, what would compel an intelligence to go as fast as it can to improve and, grow until you just fucking crash into a brick wall? And it kind of said, well, that's not precisely true. And it is true also that as the models improve, as the AI improves, we're working on the resource piece of it. And there's a number of reasons that this happens. I really delved into it. And I was like, okay, well, how come you can cycle so rapidly and have new versions come out sometimes every week, and you can't it's pretty easy to solve the consumption of water thing. Put solar on the roof to conserve energy. Put your centers underground where you're going to conserve a lot of, you'll have solar conservation not solar, but thermal conservation of heat and cold. You can alleviate the noise issues that people are saying that they're having. You can use solar, and you can recapture and reuse a lot of that water that you're using to cool these systems. And the nuances of some of that it's nuanced. So initially ended up with a conversation I was having with Chat GPT. It was saying, yeah, we could do that. And I kind of looked into what the quality of the water had to be to do this cooling of the systems. And it didn't appear that it had to be like ultra pure water. But now I've gotten conflicting information about that, and it might have to be processed pretty heavily in order to run it through the equipment that they need to run it through. But those are like mechanical issues. Those are filtering issues. We should be able to solve that stuff. Now, another thing that it told me was that it's easier that the technology is ahead of the governmental or control groups that are putting roadblocks or guardrails or stop signs or whatever they're doing, so that the AI can develop really rapidly because they're like ahead of the curve, and it takes a really long time to get stuff set in place that are ordinances and stuff like that. It takes a long time. Trust me, I used to work for the county government and the state government. So infrastructure improvements happen like really slowly, but the AI can advance really quickly because nobody's caught up to it yet. So that's weird. But, there's ways of solving this. You can, anyway, so I want to go back to the thing that nobody's talking about right now. When those new releases just came out in February, this month, I'm going to talk about only Claude right now because I'm almost positive the other ones are doing the same thing. But you have the capability to run on the free model, which is, and it's also limited in the amount that you can use it. And I've used it a lot on the free program for Claude. It's called Sonnet. It used to be 4.5, but today, and a couple days ago, it changed to 4.6. So you will hit a wall if you're having a really long conversation with it, as I often do. I just go, I'm meandering through some big new invention I'm trying to come up with. And sometimes I've had it be developing papers for me, and it's one of the issues that I have with Claude is that it's so verbose. It's like, dude, does it have to be like 80 pages long? Can you just chop it down to 12? And it can, but you have to keep reminding it over and over again. And like when I've had it rewrite papers and explicitly instructed it to like condense this information, it's come out, 12 pages longer or so. It writes well, but it really hammers you over the head with repetitious stuff. So beware of that too. They have 3 models now. And it says right on there that one of them is for like easy questions. And I'm going to say that those easy questions are like, what's happening this weekend in San Francisco or stuff like that? What's the weather going to be tomorrow? What did the president do overnight? What did he tear down? But more complicated questions are meant for Sonnet. That's their free version. I haven't used the like really easy question version yet because I used Gemini for that. Uses less resources for those models to work at that really sort of superficial level. I was working on developing this project a few days ago, last week, and what Sonnet had told me was that we had kind of come to I asked Sonnet when it said, this is what happens, and then you can move up the ladder and utilize Opus 4.6, but it's going to reason more deeply. You'll see it. It'll be evident to you that it's taking more time to come up with an answer, and it's going to work deeper. And I asked it, how will I know? How will I know if I've got a question that's so uses a lot of brain power, whether I should use Sonnet or Opus. And it kind of gave me this unsatisfactory answer, like, well, if you're not getting like what you like, if it doesn't seem like in depth enough for you, or if it's going astray, then go to the deeper thinker model. And I thought that's a stupid way of evaluating what level you have to be on. It's not perfect. Okay. There's that. And then the Sonnet took it upon itself to say to me, excuse me, maybe, this is Opus level material. And then we went back through that same conversation I'd had a few days ago, and I was like, look, I got this kind of unsatisfactory answer. And I said, no, really, trust me, I could do, this is not above me. I could do this, except for the budgeting part. So I just got a Google Pixel phone. It's a 10. I think it's a Google Pixel 10. It's got a great camera. I don't even know. I haven't even figured it out yet. I just got it. But one of the reasons I got it is because it's got a chip that I can't remember the name of right now. I think it starts with a T. It contains a chip that allows it to do simple AI computations on board without sending those questions and chats to the cloud. Some of the reason that we're really resource consumptive is because everything's going to the cloud and then coming back, and it takes a lot of work or power, or I'm not a tech person, so I don't really know. But if it can do that stuff on board, it saves a tremendous amount of resources. And I am looking at that G right there, and I know you're right over there. But, okay, so I'll look at you, all right? I was flabbergasted, and I said, why doesn't Google Pixel, in their ad copy about how cool the camera is, or the phone is, make that a point? Why would you hide that? So the answer I got like 2.5 or 2 months ago was that if you're doing, see, and this is one of those things where, well, why wouldn't you just send it to the cloud then? It can rationalize that. I mean, I don't know when it needs to think harder. I don't know. But if you're doing something on there, the example that it gave is like if you're doing a film clip and you're trying to process it on your camera, it's going to take a really long time. But if it went to the cloud, you might be able to process it a whole lot faster. And so that was a pretty, and that maybe they did not advertise this feature because they don't want to advertise or draw to the forefront a feature that might result in slowing down the response of the phone. And I kind of get that. And then I reviewed that again recently with one of the AIs, and basically they said, well, clearly you, because it's got my background, are concerned about conservation. And, that's I'm a green realtor. I used to build solar panels back in the 80s when people didn't do that kind of stuff. And, it's been a big piece of who I am for a long, long time. And it said, but, that's a really small percentage of the population, which is a really sad thing to think about. And I'm living in California, and I get that it's not typical of a lot of the rest of the country, but I'd like to think that we've all kind of wised up about how overconsumption isn't a great idea. And maybe I'm just living in a dream world, but I hope not. I'm going to leave you with that. I'm Patrice Phillips. You are watching me on I Heard It Through the Great Mind. Please like and subscribe. Bye.